People will smile at you while they still need something from you, but the moment they believe you've become a burden, that's when you find out who they really are. My name is Gerald Beaumont. I'm 67 years old, Vietnam veteran son, retired electrician, widower, and the kind of man who spent his whole life believing family always takes care of family. Turns out, family can also be the first thing that breaks your heart. Because one Tuesday evening, my daughter-in-law sat across from me at my own dinner table, folded her hands like she was negotiating a business merger, and calmly told me I had two choices: give them $100,000 or leave. What she didn't know was this: I'd already spent 40 years learning how to survive impossible situations. And before this story was over, she was going to learn exactly what happens when a quiet old man finally stops being useful. So settle in, because what happened next changed every single one of our lives. Chapter 1, The Invitation. 3 years earlier, I buried my wife, Carol. 31 years together. 31 years of routines, arguments, grocery lists, inside jokes, late-night coffee, and the kind of love that becomes part of your nervous system. Losing her felt less like grief, and more like somebody removed half the structure holding me upright. At the funeral, my son Marcus stood beside me with his hand on my shoulder. "Dad," he said quietly, "you're not going through this alone. Move in with us." I believed him. That was my first mistake. I sold the house Carol and I had spent 3 decades building together. The little blue house with the cracked driveway and the wind chime she refused to throw away because she liked the sound. I packed what mattered: a few clothes, my tools, her framed photograph, and the savings account Carol and I spent our entire lives building. $214,000, 40 years of overtime, frozen mornings, electrical burns, double shifts, missed weekends, and knees that still ached every winter because of jobs nobody remembers once they're finished. I moved into Marcus and Tanya's spare bedroom. At first, things were acceptable, not loving, not warm, just careful. The kind of household where people say good morning without looking up. The kind where every conversation feels one bad day away from becoming an argument. Still, I stayed useful. I fixed leaks, repaired cabinet doors, changed brake pads, handled yard work, bought my own groceries, stayed out of the way. I thought usefulness was enough. Then came Tuesday. Chapter 2, The Ultimatum. I had just repaired the backyard faucet. The plumber wanted $340 for a job that took me 20 minutes and a wrench older than my son. I washed my hands, poured iced tea, sat at the kitchen table. Then Tanya walked in, not casually, purposefully. She sat directly across from me with the energy of someone who had rehearsed the conversation beforehand. "Gerald," she said. Not Dad. Not even a polite smile. Just Gerald. I already knew something was wrong. "We need to discuss the financial arrangement in this house." I stared at her. "Arrangement?" I asked. "I buy my own food. I repair everything that breaks. What exactly are we discussing?" She folded her hands. "You live here for free." I remember blinking slowly, because after 40 years of work, after burying my wife, after giving everything I had to my family, hearing the word free hit harder than I expected. "No rent," she continued. "No utilities. No real contribution." Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. "And you're sitting on over $200,000. She knew the number exactly, which meant Marcus told her. That hurt more than the ultimatum. "That money is retirement savings," I said carefully. "Carol and I built that over 30 years. And Marcus and I built this house," she replied. Then she leaned forward. "So here's the proposal. You contribute $100,000 toward the mortgage as a household investment." She paused. "Or you find somewhere else to live." The silence afterward was unbearable. I could hear the faucet dripping outside. The same faucet I had fixed for them 30 minutes earlier. I didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't slam my fist on the table. At 67 years old, you learn emotional explosions solve almost nothing. Instead, I finished my iced tea, rinsed the glass, placed it carefully in the drying rack, and walked to my room. Behind me, Tanya called out, "Gerald, we should finish this conversation." But the conversation was already over. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed holding Carol's picture. "Well, sweetheart," I whispered, "looks like it's time to go." And somehow, I could almost hear her laughing, not mockingly, knowingly, like she had already figured out something I hadn't. Chapter 3, Clover Hill Lane. I didn't leave immediately. That's the difference between young anger and old wisdom. Young people storm out. Old people make plans. 3 days later, I called my friend Russell. He connected me with a realtor named Beverly, practical woman, sharp eyes, didn't waste words. By Friday afternoon, I stood on the porch of a small 2-bedroom house on Clover Hill Lane. The place needed work: loose kitchen faucet, rotting porch boards, leaning fence. Perfect, because broken things never scared me. I walked through the empty living room while sunlight stretched across the hardwood floors. Outside, oak trees lined the street. Quiet neighborhood, no shouting, no tension, no feeling like I was occupying space someone secretly resented. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I made a cash offer that same afternoon. 2 hours later, Beverly called. "Gerald," she said, "it's yours." Yours. Funny how one word can feel like oxygen. That evening I told Marcus I bought a house. I said, "I'll be out by the end of the month." He stared at me. "Dad, Tanya didn't mean it like that." I looked at my son for a long moment. The little boy I coached through Little League. The teenager I sat beside in the emergency room when his appendix nearly burst. The man I still loved despite everything. She gave me an ultimatum at my own dinner table. I said quietly, "We both know exactly what she meant." He looked down, and that told me everything. Moving day arrived cold and gray. Russell helped load the truck. Tanya never came outside. Marcus carried one box, then stood in the driveway with his hands shoved into his pockets. Before I left, he said, "You didn't have to do this." Then a voice called from next door. "You the one who bought the Henderson place?" I turned. An older woman sat in a rocking chair wrapped in a yellow cardigan, holding tea like it was part of a ceremony. "Gerald Beaumont," I said. She nodded slowly. "Pearson," she replied. "Fair warning, I keep odd hours. I hate sloppy lawns, and I make the best peach cobbler on this street." I smiled before I realized I was doing it. That was Dorothy Pearson. And without knowing it yet, meeting her was the moment my life changed direction. That wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. She simply had the rare ability to make honesty feel normal. Within weeks we developed routines. Morning coffee on neighboring porches. Conversations about tomato plants. Arguments about whether scrambled eggs count as cooking. She was 64. Widowed. Former high school principal. Sharp enough to cut through nonsense in 2 sentences. And unlike most people, she never treated kindness like a transaction. One evening she brought over peach cobbler, still warm. "You didn't have to do this," I told her. "I know," she said. "I wanted to." That sentence stayed with me, because for years, every favor in my life came attached to conditions, expectations, invisible invoices. Dot gave because she meant it. I had forgotten people like that existed. 3 weeks after moving in, my phone rang while I was repairing the fence. "Marcus. We hadn't spoken since moving day." "Hey, Dad," he said quietly. Something in his voice immediately worried me. Then he told me. The logistics company he worked for had been restructuring for months. That morning he was laid off. I leaned against the fence post and closed my eyes. No matter what happened between us, he was still my son. His pain still hit me like my own. "We're okay for now," he said too quickly. Then added, "Tanya wants to have dinner. All 3 of us." I almost refused. Almost. Instead I said, "I'll think about it." After hanging up, Dot's voice floated over the fence. "You okay over there?" I stared at the unfinished boards. "I don't know yet." A pause. Then she answered with one word. "Cobbler." And despite everything, I laughed. The next morning, Tanya appeared at my front door alone. No Marcus, no warning, and she looked different. Not arrogant, not polished, exhausted. We sat on the porch with coffee while she held the mug like it was the only stable thing left in her life. Finally, she said, "I'm not here to ask for money." I stayed silent. At my age, silence becomes a skill. Then she confessed everything: the second mortgage, the failed online business, the $60,000 she lost trying to save it, the debt Marcus didn't know existed, and the worst part, she had been hiding it for 18 months. "We're 4 months from losing the house," she whispered. I looked at her sitting there on my porch. This woman who had humiliated me. This woman who demanded my savings. And what I felt wasn't revenge, it was grief. Because suddenly I understood something. Fear had turned her into someone desperate. That didn't excuse what she did, but it made it human. "Why tell me?" I asked. She looked down at her coffee. "Because you're the only person who'll tell me the truth." That sentence hit harder than she realized. After a long silence, I gave her my answer. "You tell Marcus everything tonight," I said. "All of it. No more hiding." She flinched, but she nodded. "And after that?" she asked. "That," I told her, "depends on whether your marriage is built on honesty or fear." Sunday evening, I returned to the same house I once left feeling unwanted. Marcus opened the door. His eyes were red. He already knew. Before either of us spoke, he hugged me. A real hug. The kind men only give when words stop working. At dinner, Tanya apologized. Not politely, not strategically, truthfully. "What I said to you was wrong," she admitted. "You treated us with kindness, and I treated you like a problem." The room went silent. Then I said the hardest thing forgiveness requires. "I forgive you." And I meant it. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the same place that hurt you. "I won't be moving back," I added. Not out of anger. I just found peace on Clover Hill Lane. Marcus smiled tiredly. "Good," he said softly. "I'm glad. That night I didn't write checks. Didn't rescue anybody. Didn't become the solution to their financial disaster. Instead, I helped them make a plan. Budget cuts, calls to lenders, hard conversations, real steps. Because sometimes helping people doesn't mean saving them. Sometimes it means refusing to let them panic. When I left, Tanya hugged me at the door, awkward at first, then genuine. "Take care of my son," I told her. "I will," she whispered. And for the first time, I believed her. I drove back to Clover Hill Lane with the windows down. Cool spring air rolling through the car. Sat on her porch under the yellow light, rocking chair moving slowly. Tea in hand. Exactly where she belonged. "How was dinner?" she called out. "Complicated," I answered. "Good," she said. "That's family." I stood there looking at her for a moment. The oak trees. The quiet street. The woman who walked into my life carrying peach cobbler and honesty. Then I asked, "Want to have coffee tomorrow?" Not across the yard. Actually together. She tilted her head thoughtfully. "Mine," she decided. "My coffee is better. It really is," I admitted. She smiled. "The real kind. The kind earned through years of surviving life." 7:30, she said. "Don't be late." That night I sat on the edge of my bed holding Carol's photograph, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. "I'm okay," I whispered. "I'm really okay." Then I set the picture down, turned off the lamp, and slept peacefully in a home that belonged entirely to me. People will only respect you once they realize they can no longer control you. But here's the strange part nobody tells you. The moment you stop begging for a place in someone else's life, that's usually the exact moment you finally discover your own. Mine happened 12 minutes across town, on a quiet street lined with oak trees, next to a woman in a yellow cardigan who made dangerous peach cobbler and told the truth without flinching. My name is Gerald Beaumont. I'm 67 years old, and after losing almost everything, I finally found home. If this story touched you in any way, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because stories like these remind us what family, respect, and second chances really mean. And before you go, tell me something in the comments. What would you have done if someone gave you the same ultimatum Gerald faced? Would you walk away or stay and fight for the relationship? We read every comment. And if you enjoy emotional family stories, revenge stories, and powerful life lessons like this one, there's another story waiting for you right now on this channel. Thank you for spending this time with us. We'll see you in the next story.